Close your eyes for a few minutes and do deep meditation. Delve into your own self and collect your consciousness in the manner it was described to you. Let this be done for a few minutes. Hari When would you meditate? At what time of the day? This has to be decided each by oneself. Though there is a general prescription that early morning hours are good or midnight is good or evening time is good, it is left to you to modify these general indications according to the circumstances of your life and the facilities that you have for the doing of meditation. If you are an office goer working hard for 8 hours and returning home at 8 o'clock in the evening, you would not like to sit immediately for meditation because of the fatigue of the day. You may like to lie down and take rest for a few minutes. And perhaps you have something to tell the family members, your wife and children, you got husband, relations, brothers and all that. You cannot just keep quiet the moment you come back from the office. You may sit little bit and have a little chat with your family, as is usually done anywhere in houses. Evidently you have a little supper, or sometimes you take late supper. It depends upon the way of life that you are living. If your supper is late, say you have got the habit of eating at 10 o'clock in the night, then after you have your ablutions and washing, you can sit for your meditation for some time. For an hour, in case you don't have any visitors that you are expecting at that time. Sometimes big officials have people coming to them to see them for some purpose or the other, even after they retire from their office in the evening. You have to dispose of that duty also before you sit for meditation. So that when you sit, you do not have any kind of program or commitment at that time. The mind should be entirely free. If it is not possible for the mind to be entirely free, you are occupied with your duties even in the night for some reason or the other. Find some time before you go to bed. Actually, the length of the time that you take in meditation is not so important as the intensity of your feeling during meditation. But the intensity is not adequate. It is a little bit shallow. Then you have to sit for a long time to make it go deep. This is one suggestion. Oftentimes you will find that the mind is very recalcitrant and will not yield to your wish for allowing it to meditate. If it is not at all possible for the mind to concentrate at a particular time for some reason of distraction, take up a scripture which is to your liking, an elevating literature which glorifies spiritual life, and read calmly a passage or two of that text or scripture. Rove your mind over the ideas expressed in those 2 pages of the scripture. Several things of high value are mentioned in the scriptures. On each one of those ideas, you rove your mind and bestow deep thought. After that, you can withdraw your mind from study of books and then directly do your contemplation. If that also is not possible, the mind is not willing, even after you have given sufficient time for study, then take deep breath in and out, drink a cup of water, stand up and walk on the veranda for a few minutes, then sit down. If you are accustomed to chant kirtans and bhajans, you chant some kirtan loudly and do a bhajan by yourself. Just lift the mind to a level required for meditation. Then you sit again for meditation. One of the great assistants for the purpose of meditation directly is japa sadhana, a reciting of a formula, a mantra, into which you might have been initiated or which is to your liking. with a japamala or without a japamala, as the case may be. Loudly chant the mantra. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Then slowly, mentally, only moving your lips, recite that mantra. Well, mentally recite this mantra, repeat it in mentally. If the mind is wandering during mental repetition, then again start loudly chanting the mantra which is your initiated object. Actually, japa itself is a complete sadhana. That by itself is sufficient to purify your mind and allow your mind to concentrate on the divinity of your mantra. The mantra japa is not merely a recitation, it is also a simultaneous contemplation. Every mantra has an originator, which is a rishi, as we know that. A divine sage visualized this mantra in his meditation. And so his thought also is present and is charged upon this mantra. When you read a book, you also know the mind of the author of that book. When you read a book, actually you are reading the mind of the author. The book is not outside the thoughts of the person who has written the book. So you are in a state of attunement with the mind of the author. As he was thinking, so you are also thinking now. The book is only an instrument, a guide to keep you in harmony with the thoughts of the great author of a scripture or the book that you are reading. So, while chanting the mantra, you are in harmony and rapport with the great thought of the Maharshi who visualized the mantra. The mantra itself is a great power. The words of the mantra are not mere haphazard letters. They are associated in a particular systematized manner so that when they are recited in the proper intonation, the words combine and create a new chemical effect, you may say. As when you mix acid and alkali, there is a third effect following immediately. The chemical force is generated by the very juxtaposition of the letters of the mantra. So the mantra itself is a power. The second power associated with the mantra is the thought, the vision, the power of the rishi who visualized it. So two forces are impregnated into the mantra. There is a third power, the divinity which is the presiding principle of the mantra. Every mantra indicates a God. The thought of God is also a communication that you are establishing between your mind and the presence of that great power, the divinity. So through the medium of your thinking, the force of the divinity also gets charged into the mantra. So, the letters of the mantra themselves are a power. The rishis thought there also is a power. The divinity's immanence in that mantra also is a power. There is another thing called meter. The way in which it is composed is called a meter. Just as you have got in poetry, there is a meter. By the recitation of that poem which is written in a particular meter, you are roused into a particular feeling which cannot be so if you read a mere prose, just translation of that in ordinary vernacular. So tremendous power of all these kinds gets concentrated in the mantra. Knowing this very well, feel that this combined force is entering into you while you are reciting the mantra. There are other formalities that you may follow. The place that you choose for your chanting of the mantra, the direction that you have to face, and the other attitudes that you have to maintain. Usually, you have to face the east, is what the elders tell us, because sun rises in the east. The moment sun is about to rise, the whole atmosphere is charged with the new prana shakti. The Upanishad says, prana prajana udayat esha surya. Surya rises at the very prana of all living beings in the world. So the whole air, the entire direction of the east, the atmosphere is charged with prana shakti of Surya Bhagavan. So when you face the east for your recitation of the mantra, you are getting the impress of that force that is coming from the eastern direction. Some people say northern direction also is good, because it is believed that there is an electromagnetic force that passes from the north pole to the south pole. For the reason that this is so, people say you should not sleep with your head towards the north. Otherwise, your brain can be affected by the electromagnetic force that is charged from the north to the south. It will pass through your head, through your body and go to the south. That is why do not sleep with your head towards the north, it is said. But for meditation it is very good, because let the charge be on your personality. When you are actually meditating, it will enrich you with more vigor. So, eastern direction or northern direction are very good. But in places like Rishikesh, facing the Ganga also is very good. Whatever be the direction, that is immaterial here. Here everything is holy and all directions are good. Facing the Ganga is as good as facing any divine emanation of force. If you are living in Swargashram side, you will face the Ganga in one direction. If you are here, you will face it in another direction. So likewise, the direction is chosen and the mantra is recited in this manner with the concentrated feeling that you are in the midst of a tremendous electromagnetic power charging you from all directions in many ways. How long will you do the japa? As long as your heart is not satisfied, as long as you do not feel the presence of the divinity of the mantra, as long as you do not feel the effect of the chanting of the mantra, go on continuing it for months and years. You can go on doing it throughout your life also. Many people take to japa only as their sadhana and they don't do anything else. That is wonderful. What does Bhagavan Sri Krishna tell you in the Bhagavad Gita? Of all spiritual sacrifices, I am japa. Yajnanam japa yajnas. No worship, no yajna, no sacrifice, no havan can equal japa. So take to japa sadhana. Recitation of japa mantra and chanting of the divine name through kirtana and bhajana can be accompaniment. Only thing is, as far as possible, choose the same time every day, because the time also has an effect upon it. As time process is a cyclic movement, a particular time that you have chosen for a special practice gets charged by the very cyclic movement of time at that hour. And similar is the place that you choose. Because the particular location where you are seated for japa also gets charged with even the seat. Even the seat under you is charged with a divinity. Your whole body is therefore divinized at that time. In intense types of japa, an electric energy is produced in the body. A sensation of a peculiar nature will arise in you, and the energy will try to go out of your body and get down into the earth. If you contact the earth and sit on bare ground without any seat, it is therefore said, don't sit on bare ground, because the charge will go down to the earth, because the earth with its gravity will pull down every energy of your body. So have a seat which is not a conductor of electricity, it should be a non-conductor. Vishasana or any such thing which is non-conductor. Same place, same time. Same attitude, same mode, same mantra, same divinity, and no change should be experimented. You should not change the mantra frequently as if something else is better. As every object in meditation is as good as any other object, every mantra is equally good. And there is no particular distinguishing factor among them. So take to japa sadhana. In this yoga of japa, all the other aspects of yoga also will be found to commingle in some way or other. Inasmuch as there is a God in front of the japa, bhakti yoga comes in even in japa sadhana. You love your God of japa mantra, your divinity, you pray, and you are deeply in affection for that God. This is the bhakti aspect of japa sadhana. And you concentrate with the power of your will on this divinity, on the rishi and on the mantra itself. This is the Raja Yoga aspect of Japa Sadhana. You understand the immanence of the divinity everywhere, not that it is in one place only. The concentration on the immanent aspect of this divinity is the Jnana Yoga aspect of Japa Sadhana. So, Bhakti and Raja Yoga and Jnana Yoga, all these are in this Japa only. Therefore, Bhagavan Sri Krishna has rightly said, nothing is equal to Japa as a sadhana. Whether you have to take bath or you should not have to take bath, sometimes these questions will arise. If I am traveling in a railway train, what do I do? These factors are irrelevant for Japa sadhana. If you feel that the bath before the Japa is very good, take a bath. Perhaps you feel refreshed at that time. But if you are ill and you are not permitted by the doctor to take a bathing at that time, or you have some kind of reason that you should not take a bath at that time, there is no objection to your taking to Japa sadhana even without your bath. What about travelling in a railway train at that time? Sandhya Kala. Let the train move, what does it matter? But you are not moving. You are in the same place. You forget the movement of the train. As you forget the movement of the earth, you think you are stationed. Like that you forget that the movement goes. And it is spontaneously moving that it will not disturb you in any way. So any time is good and any manner conducive to concentration also is good in Japa sadhana. The mala that you have used is also very important. The mala has a twofold effect. Because of the continuous touching of the beads with the chanting of the mantra, the beads also get charged. So mala is very holy. You cannot just keep it on the ground or throw it somewhere. Many people put it on their neck or keep it in a little bag secretly so that it may not be soiled. And sometimes they tie it on the wrist of the hand, which is not proper. Because your hand does all kinds of things. You take food and wash yourself, touch all sorts of things. So it is not a good practice to tie the japa mala on the hand. It should be on the neck. Okay, all right, have it on the neck or in your pocket. Now, this japa mala is a reminder to you that you have to do the japa. Wherever you see the mala on your neck or in your pocket, you are reminded of a noble thing. When you see money in your pocket, you suddenly get reminded of some value. Or you have a pistol in your pocket, you are reminded of another idea altogether. But if you have a japamala, a noble thought arises in your mind. Generally, I would advise you to keep two things always in your pocket. One japamala and a small edition of the Bhagavad Gita. These will protect you also, not merely act as reminders. They are wonderful things. They are protective forces. They will guard you like a guardian angel. Don't be under the impression that it is a silly matter. Very valuable. Some people have praised Rudraksha also to that extent. As long as you have a genuine Rudraksha with you, it will guide you. There is a report that I read in a paper once, very interesting to hear. There were two gentlemen travelling in a railway train. One of them was a foreigner, another was an Indian from South. This South Indian was praising the value of japa. through a Rudraksha bead. And oh, wonderful, Ekamukhi, Dvimukhi, Trimukhi and all that, he was mentioning the varieties of Rudraksha. Wonderful. As long as you have it with you, you will be guarded from even great dangers and catastrophes. He was, this foreigner was listening to all this. This person who was listening to the glory of the Rudraksha bead writes as a report in a paper. What happened at that time was a sudden bursting noise. I felt everything is getting shattered. I knew nothing else after that. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital. It was a derailment of a train, and many have been injured seriously. One of these persons is. And the newspaper says there was a great tragedy. Many were injured and they were put in the hospital. One person only was free from injury. Some gentleman from the south, somehow or other he escaped. There was only one person who was not affected. Everyone was injured in this calamity. This report he read in a paper. Just something interesting for you to hear. Everything is wonderful. Everything is wonderful in this world. All things are valuable and very holy. And you should not scoff in a modernistic manner, which is very unfortunate for us, at things which are sacred and regarded as wonderful and protective forces by the ancient masters. So the Japamala is not only a reminder that you should do the japa, but also it is a protective angel in your pocket. Keep it always with you. You tie a wristwatch always, but wristwatch cannot protect you. But Japamala will protect you. You hang a mini radio in your pocket. These are modern cultures. These are of no utility for you finally. They are ultimate distractions. You have to live in this world beautifully and not as a tragic victim of forces in the world. So take to Japasadhana as a great method of communion with divine forces. Sankirtan also is a great yoga. Come, in your own language you can have a bhajan of this kind. And because you feel that he is coming and he is charging you with this presence, you feel sometimes like dancing with Sankirtana mantras. The people who dance in Sankirtan are not foolish people. They feel a new energy in themselves, and that is it that makes them jump as children jump. Why do children run here and there, and when you are keeping quiet, they are not keeping quiet, they are something or other they are doing, because the overabundance of the energy of their body. This overabundance of energy in Sankirtana also is a great help to them. So this is one of the methods that you can adopt if other methods are not suitable to you. Bhajan and Sankirtan. Tukaram, Namadev, Ekanath, Kabir Das, Mirabai, they all took to this path. Only Nama Japa. There is no other way in Kali Yuga, says the scripture. All these instructions and admonitions are to bring you to a focusing point that you have to lead a spiritual life in the true sense of the term and not an isolated factor of your life. Spirituality is not something that is carried in your pocket and that you take it out whenever it is necessary. It is the vital breath of your life. It is the very skin of your personality. You carry it wherever you go. The spirit with which you live in this world and act and speak and work, that spirit is called spirituality. Your attitude generally to anything is the spirituality thereof. It is not a scripture, it is not anything else, it is what you think and feel throughout your day, that is your spirituality. Swami Shivananda Maharaj was a great embodiment of this kind of inclusiveness of all powers of nature and people in one single individuality. He was a lover of God. He was a lover of human beings. He was a lover of nature. He was a lover of the Himalayas, of Ganga, of holy places like Varanasi, Badrinath, Kanyakumari, Rameshwaram, etc. There is nothing that he did not love. And he could summon their presence into himself. This is another interesting thing that you have to hear. You have to summon things into yourself, and it is not always necessary to go to things. It is possible. If you want a thing, it will come. It is a psychological secret that if you strictly believe that what I want has come, it should come and it has to come. Because your resolution touches the object that you need and it gravitates towards you immediately. I have told you the story long ago of the power that was exercised by sage Bharadwaja, which we have recited in the Valmiki Ramayana. Bharata went to the forest in search of Rama. On the way he has to pass through the hermitage of Bharadwaja Maharshi somewhere near Allahabad, as they say, which is now. Bharata went with a large army, elephants, horses and soldiers. When he found that he was nearing the sage's ashrama, he changed his royal dress, removed his shoes, put on a dhoti and an upper cloth, and went alone to the Maharshi's ashram. The Maharshi saw him. You are Bharata? You are coming from Ayodhya? What for have you come? I am in search of my brother who has left the palace and gone to the forest. Well, he is near, somewhere near, he is staying here. You can see him tomorrow, there is no objection. But you have come alone, all the way from Ayodhya like this. No, Maharaj, I have got a large army, I have got a big retinue, and I did not want to disturb the sanctity of this place. Therefore, I asked them to stay far away. No, call all of them here, you will have a grand supper here. I will feed you. Bharata had two difficulties in his mind. Is the sage testing me? He has nothing with him. He has only a kamandalu and a walking stick and a yajnashala. And he is going to feed all these people. Feeling these things in his heart, he told Maharaj, I am very grateful for your kind words. We don't require any dinner. I am going back. The Maharshi was omniscient. He knew all things, even the minds of people. This fellow is thinking that I have no power at all. I am a beggar. He is thinking, let me show my power to him. Call all of them, he said. When the Maharshi ordered, he brought the entire army, some thousands of them, elephants, horses and all. This Maharaj went to the Yajnashala, poured a little ghee, Indraya Swaha, Varunaya Swaha, and all the divinities he summoned. Come Indra, come Varuna, come the celestial damsels, come Ganga, come Yamuna, come Saraswati, everybody come. Immediately river started flowing. Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati flooding everywhere. And angels descended from the heaven with golden plates filled with ancient, delicious dishes. Thousands and thousands of them started descending with brilliant bodies. And each person had a palace for him to stay. Peacocks, bathing ghats, gardens, and people to massage, tired people. Oh, they were wondering, are we dreaming or what? Food was served. Nothing of the kind ever was tasted by any human being. Such celestial dish was served. All were given beautiful bed in different palaces. These soldiers very humorously said, it seems, let Bharata go in search of Rama, we stay here only. Why should we go unnecessarily? This is a nice place. Let Bharata do his work. What does it matter? They all slept very well. Next morning when they woke, there is nothing. Only the whole jungle was there. Only one Brahmana Maharshi sitting there with a stick and a kamandalu. All the celestials have vanished. What do you say for this? The power of summoning. You have only to want intensely and it is there. If you want the grace of Swami Shivananda, it is here. It will not come tomorrow, day after, but your heart should be prepared for it. Oh, it may come or not, I am a foolish man, I don't know, he is very far away. If you think like that, he will be very far away one day. It will never come. He is near me, he is all pervading, everything is here only. If I touch, everything comes. It will come. As everything is everywhere, you will get also everything everywhere. You need not move from your seat. Everywhere you find everything in the very place where you are sitting. Such is the power of the summoning, which you exercise by the yoga shakti that is generated by these yogas. Japa yajna, Sankirtana yajna, bhajan yajna, and many other things. So varieties of things have been told to you by various speakers and Mahatmas. All of them are wonderful. Everything is a jewel. And so many jewels we have got now to carry home. So be blessed with all these things. God bless you.